Good evening, everyone. I hope you're all doing great. I just want to make sure that you can all hear me fine. This live stream is not going to be longer than 30 minutes, so it'll only be till 7:30. This was a special request by numerous people that asked questions following on the live stream I did last night, which went way over the time that I had planned. It was an hour in the end, and just over 8,000 people have watched that video. We need lots of people around the world to watch that content, and hopefully many people will join us in this live stream. And tonight we will cover specifically what you need to do post ground zero. Ground zero is the area where a nuclear weapon detonates. And at that ground zero moment, whether it's in the upper atmosphere, whether it's 100 meters above the ground, half a kilometer above the ground, whether it's on the ground, under the ground, whether it's in the ocean, in a lake, or whatever, you need to understand the consequences, what you can do if you're not within the immediate blast zone, and how you can protect yourself. So please like this live stream, share this live stream. Like I said, we're dedicating half an hour to this till 7:30. 8 o'clock, I'll be meeting with the channel members specifically for our Thursday evening live stream. That's normally an hour and a half. So I look forward to that as well. So there were specific questions that were asked at the time, and I hope those people are in this live stream. This live stream was for you. So you can ask me questions now. There's a few things that I'll explain to you based on the questions that I have seen. Many people have spoken about potassium tablets that you can find at most clinics. It's potassium iodide tablets. And, within the city of Cape Town, because there's a nuclear power station within 30 kilometers of the city of Cape Town, there's many hospitals that actually have potassium iodide tablets. And what they do, and I explained this yesterday, is when you take those tablets, it saturates the thyroid gland, because the thyroid gland in a nuclear accident where you have contaminants, you get iodine 131 being released, and that is a radioactive isotope that is released in gas form. And that iodine 131 will accumulate in your thyroid and become a source. And because your thyroid is in your head, that source is close to your brain, and you will be irradiating your brain. You will not be able to remove that radiation, and this is a huge problem. So by saturating your thyroid with the potassium iodide tablets, you will not have a buildup of radioactive iodine. It can flush through your system, and that is a lot better. So this is what those tablets do. It does not stop you from being irradiated. Let me make this patently clear. A lot of people don't understand that radiation cannot be stopped unless you have shielding or you're far enough away from it. Okay? So once again, I want to stress the three things that are important with radiation poisoning. And that is how much time you're exposed to something that is radioactive, how far you are from it, and what shielding have you got in place. If you have shielding in place that's effective, you will have no effect on yourself, none. So if you're in a concrete bunker, in most cases, or you underwater, surrounded by water, not even neutron will be able to get to you if you're 2 meters underwater and the source is right above you. So at nuclear power stations, we use water above irradiated fuel that's been in the reactor to actually stop any radiation from getting to the people that work with those items. Okay. You just commented, Jackie. So I don't know why you say that you can't comment. It says I can't comment because I'm not subscribed, but I'm subscribed and I've been a member for 16 months. Help, please. This is the only message I can send. Wow, that is strange. I don't know how to help you, Jackie. If you're a subscriber, if you're a member, you definitely subscribe to the channel. And yeah, that doesn't make any sense. That's strange. So I did put a setting out that you should have been a subscriber for 20 minutes at least to be able to comment in the stream. And this is just to keep the trolls out, and it works very well. So I'm not sure why you are struggling with that. But welcome to all the people in this live stream. We are discussing tonight um, the consequences post ground zero, a nuclear device going off, and that can be in upper atmosphere, it can be just above ground, it can be on ground level, it can be underground, it can be underwater. So there's many scenarios for ground zero, and to know what you can do subsequently. Annette is saying, thanks, Etienne. Annette is saying, Des, will it help if you jump in a swimming pool, or must you cover yourself when you disappear underground? Must it be in a drain with a lid? Like my answers in the above or below the ground. Okay, Annette, the first thing you need to understand is there's two things you need to overcome. The first thing is the initial blast. So if you see a blast happening in the distance, you're going to get a shockwave coming towards you. It's very important that you can escape that massive surge of air past you and survive that. Being in a drain underground, any sub-level surface or strong building will certainly help with that. Now, that air rush is no different to any other conventional explosion. So I need to make that clear. That wind will dissipate as it moves away further from the nucleus. So it'll dissipate. It's not going to be as strong as it will be in the center. So that is why we speak about a blast zone where there's total destruction, and then it becomes less and less after that. If you're close to ground zero and you are not underground in a bunker that can absorb the shock wave from that explosion, for instance, if the explosion is above ground, as will be in most tactical nuclear weapons, it'll be in most cases above ground. If it's below ground, it'll be to cause some kind of an earthquake or just a shocking experience, basically. But when it happens above ground, the air will move outward at a rapid rate. And when that movement happens, that shockwave happens, if you are close to ground zero and you're above ground, that your chances of survival is zero. So you won't even know that anything's happened to you. Past that point, you become like anyone that's in a hectic hurricane or tornado or whatever, where there's massive air movement that will typically break windows. That shockwave cars will go flying. If the building's not built strong enough, if it's a wooden building, it'll just crumble completely into pieces, and you'll see things flying in all sorts of directions. Once again, that has got nothing to do with radiation. That has got to do with the initial explosion because of a core of uranium or plutonium fissioning instantly if it's not a hydrogen bomb. And that instantaneous fission that takes place, the splitting of that whole core, if the whole core fissions, that will be called a very successful or high yield fissioning, in which case maximum damage will occur because the shockwave will be profound. And with many nuclear weapons that they detonated, the shockwaves were actually, or the explosion yield was a lot more than they anticipated. They might have thought that it's a 10 megaton, which would be the same as 10 megatons of TNT exploding. And then they would get a 20 megaton yield or 25 megaton yield when they were planning for a 10. So it's not an exact science. And that's why so many explosions were done to actually test and see what the yields would be. And they can do that with various instruments that they would place at various distances from the blast zone. They did a lot of above ground tests, thousands of above ground tests, and the world has not come to an end because of it. And subsequently, most tests were done underground. The last test I can remember was France still conducting tests in the ocean. And, you know, a lot of you can see that footage. You could actually see what it looked like when those tests were conducted. And the world was in an uproar because France was still conducting nuclear tests not so long ago. And these weren't underground tests. They were atmospheric tests. So I need to make sure that we get to the questions that people had very specifically. People ask a lot of questions like, how far do you need to be from the blast zone to be safe? So in other words, it really doesn't matter what size nuclear weapon it is that detonates. If you could survive the initial blast, you can save yourself. If you were directly irradiated, there's a certain area where in each if you have had direct radiation from the blast zone, that plume, you could have received a lethal dose of radiation just in the explosion itself, even if you weren't killed due to the blast. So when you see that fireball, hide behind anything that can shelter you, a simple brick wall, wood, anything that can shelter you from the radiation that can come just from the fireball itself and the radiation, the initial radiation of that core exploding. And in Hiroshima, Nagasaki, you could literally see like photographic prints of people's bodies against walls. Where their bodies were, they would be a shape that you could see because it blocked the radiation that hit the wall. So you need to be aware of that. You need to, as quickly as possible, get behind something. When you see the flash, don't stand and look at it. Okay. And this is what people will probably get out their cell phone cameras and start filming. And, I saw an article earlier today about a person that went to the rescue of a girl that was knocked by a car onto the roof of a house. And he was so frustrated because he was begging for the people to call the emergency services. And all they were interested is taking out their phones and filming this poor girl lying on top of the roof of the house, and she succumbed to her injuries the next day. And this man was obviously in distress, and he's very distressed today because no one wanted to help him. He was literally their movie, and it's shocking that this is how society behaves these days. So please, if you see a nuclear plume, I want that to be your last sight of it. All you should care about next is, once that fireball is gone, is what is the wind direction, because that will determine where you need to go. And you need to go in the opposite direction. If the wind is blowing towards you, you need to move to some other direction that is not with the wind, because the radiation is going to follow you. That fallout will follow you. And remember, as it moves, it is diminishing because it's being diluted. As it dilutes, it can dilute to a level where it's not lethal anymore, and this happens rather quickly. The problem is, if you get contaminated on your clothing and you wear that contamination with you, you're carrying the radiation on you. You can breathe in the contamination. It could be in your intestines. There's many things that can be given to you to try and flush it out, etc. You can scrub your body. You can use water to clean yourself. If you were in a blast zone and you travel away from there, you can dive into a swimming pool and scrub yourself if it's not within the plume direction. And the fallout in that pool might not be as bad as what you received initially. So scrub yourself. Get any dust or particulates that's on your body. Get it off you. Get rid of the clothes. Put on clean clothes. And that's why typically a 72-hour kit, you're going to have a change of clean clothing in there that can help you under those circumstances. Then, when it comes to the fallout afterwards, any radioactive particle or source, depending on how strong it is, cannot irradiate you over 100-meter distance. If you're that far away from it, it's going to have no effect on you whatsoever. Even at a 10-meter distance, certain sources won't do anything to you. But the three things, once again, is time, distance, and shielding. In other words, how long you are exposed to something, how far you are from it, okay, and what shielding are you using. So when you are wearing clothing, you are typically shielding yourself from alpha and beta radiation, unless it is on your clothing and it's on your skin, and your clothing is close to your face that is bare, and your arms and even your legs, you could still receive radiation where your skin is exposed. Alpha and beta can't get through your clothing onto your skin. But your face is not covered. Your arms might not be covered. Your hands might not be covered. Your feet might not be covered. If it is covered, you might be okay. So these are very simple things that you need to consider. Okay. What are the chances of us being hit by a nuclear missile? Well, the chance of you being hit by one is very slim. I mean, that must be someone that really hates you, Maya, to send a nuclear missile directly at you. I really certainly don't wish that on anyone. The chances of that are very slim. In South Africa specifically, the chances of a nuclear device being used strategically, a tactical nuke, are slim. But there are scenarios where it can benefit certain people. And someone said before that they don't think that Russia or China would do something like that because we are allies. I never thought that Russia or China would ever need to do something like that in South Africa. It'll come from other sources. If you want to establish a one world government, the people that control Biden's narrative, Trump's narrative, Putin's narrative, all of these governmental leaders' narrative, they are the people you need to look towards. They are the people that will enable and allow terrorist organizations to do things like this. They will even allow them to get the material, etc., that they need to conduct such a heinous act. So they won't deliberately go and do it themselves. They will facilitate it and they will allow it because it can certainly be stopped. You need to understand one thing. If these global organizations wanted North Korea to not have nuclear weapons, they could stop it instantly. It's part of their plan for North Korea to have nuclear weapons and for Kim Jong-un to be there at their disposal. And they can use him as a threat for the rest of the world to do all sorts of things. And this is why I covered things the way that I did in the live stream last night. If you haven't watched it, it's an hour long. Do spend the time to watch that live stream to understand the circumstances being created in the world right now. Yeah, time, distance, and shielding, Marlene. If I'm inside my flat consisting of a strong brick wall and doors and windows are closed, can I still be irradiated? No, you cannot, Antoinette. So often in a nuclear accident, what would the information that will be put out there is that you remain indoors, okay? And you will see a lot of people that live close to Koeberg Nuclear Power Station, the vents in their rooms, they would duct tape it closed and even paint over it. To make sure that there's no airflow in and out of the house. That's not sustainable at the end of the day. But you can shield yourself completely inside a brick and mortar home. Even through glass, you're not going to get alpha and beta coming through glass, even gamma. You're going to stop through your windows and curtains. You're not going to get that from the air outside unless the particles can physically filter into your house. If the particles can filter into your house, that is a problem. And I know with a lot of the test sites in the US and in Russia where fallout happened, they would go years later and they would go and do scans in the people's ceilings, and the dust up in the ceilings was highly radioactive, but the radioactivity didn't come through the ceiling board because the ceiling board alone could stop it. So that's important to understand. Okay. So any other important questions? Shipping containers will work. Well, if you're inside a shipping container, very little will go through there. It will stop gamma and many other things. So you need a neutron will go through a shipping container, but you need a critical source to actually provide that. And that's only going to happen during the nuclear explosion itself. So there's many things that can stop contamination from damaging you. But now, there's a big difference between being contaminated, in other words, having radioactive particles on your body or on equipment or whatever you're taking with you, and actually being irradiated. You cannot stop natural radiation or radiation from things around you. It's impossible to stop it. We are being irradiated every single day of our lives. Okay. When you put on a lamp or you light a fire or anything like that, there's heat radiation coming off that and it can burn your skin. And I'm not talking about convection or physical contact. I'm talking about radiation burning you. A lot of people don't understand that you can stand away from a fire and you can feel heat. That is not convection heat. That is not conduction heat. It is heat radiation. You're being irradiated and your skin will actually get red. I remember when I did fires 3 up at Klip back in the day as part of my Eskom fire training. The fire level 3, we did 1, 2, and 3. 3 we did up at Klip. We had a massive transformer lit, and we were standing 30 meters away from that transformer. And through our visors, we would burn. I mean, we had second-degree burns from the intensity of that heat. And when you make a shield of water in front of you with your branch, when you create that spray, it would stop that radiation instantly. It would absorb it. So these are things that you need to consider. There's a lot you can do to not be irradiated by something. Once again, how long you are exposed, time, distance, how far you are from the source. And this is the problem. You might not know that you are being irradiated, and then you could be irradiated for an extended period of time. You should feel a burning sensation. And when you do, get away. And don't forget that whatever it is could be on you. It can be a tiny particle, it could be tiny. If that is highly radioactive, it could kill you. So you need to know this. Okay. If it's a high, uh, if it's a highly radioactive source, it could cause enough damage to kill you, depending on where that source is. Okay. And if your body, uh, uh, the little particles in your body literally gets irradiated, it starts to break down. I mean, it'll rot literally to the point where your body cannot handle the septicism that comes in, the infections, etc. And normally you get organ failure and you end up dying, depending on how much of your body is being irradiated. But the good news is that when a nuclear weapon goes off, it's not the end of the world. You can take measures to survive it, basic measures. Okay, it's not rocket science measures, and it's not the end of the world. So when you see a nuclear weapon going off somewhere, it's not the end of the world. People should fight to survive. I want you to, wherever you are in the world, if you see a nuclear weapon going off and you see that plume, fight to survive. Okay, stay rational, think clearly, think of helping other people, think of educating other people, and that's why I'm doing these videos. I'll do more of these videos if you want me to. If you have specific questions, welcome to the over 300 people watching. If you haven't watched the beginning, please go back and watch the beginning. This is a question session specifically with regards to the moments after ground zero. So please confirm again, how big is ground zero in terms of fallout? Electrical doctor, thanks for that question. So it depends on the size of the fissile material in the core of the nuclear device. So all nuclear weapons have a core with a piece missing. That missing piece, which can be a wedge, it can be part of a cylinder, needs to slot into the full core for that fission to take place. And it's supposed to be an instant yield. And that is what produces that massive explosion. Okay. So in big nuclear devices, you need an explosion, even a nuclear explosion, to drive that connection of that sphere to actually create the explosion. It's very technical because you get various methods of doing that, and I'm not going to go into the detail. But depending on the amount of yield you get, how successful that interaction is, will determine the size of the ground zero. So with a large weapon, when it goes into the megatons, you are talking about citywide destruction. But with citywide destruction, if the detonation happens above ground, you can be underneath that explosion and survive if you're underground and shielded well enough. You could even survive in the drains of literally a sewer or a rainwater drain system, anything like that. Close to ground zero, you can survive. And people need to know this. If you're in a wooden structure, they probably wouldn't withstand the blast. Your chances of survival are slim. If you're very close to the initial ground zero, just the radiation without shielding above you, you will be literally, you will, what people call vaporize, is not really vaporizing. You'll break down into your smallest particles instantly. In other words, you will cease to exist as a human instantly. You won't even know what happened to you. So that is literally what happens. And I know at Chernobyl, for instance, the turbine hall operator was never found because he was vaporized in the initial explosion. Okay, Faye says, what's the chances of UK and Europe being hit by a nuke? Very good. Extremely high. I would say 90%. I would say in the up until 2030, 100%. So just to get back to the size of ground zero, with tactical nuclear weapons, typically it's going to be a smaller explosion. It's something that won't even blow up a town. It's something that would tactically be used to destroy a military base, runways, things like that, okay? And when that happens, there's certain things that goes into play. If you use conventional TNT to blow up a runway or planes or whatever, they can fix it and use whatever on that base again. If you use a nuclear weapon, that base needs to be evacuated. So it changes things completely. It's a very decisive thing to use. So I need to make that clear. That's why tactical nuclear weapons are being spoken about extensively right now. And you will see there will be a lot of news about elites building bunkers, which I've been doing since forever. I've spoken about that in my Double O Days meetings. I've spoken about that in my members' live streams extensively. Many world elites are building underground bunkers in South Africa, in the southern African region, and have been doing so for a very long time. Your geyser is protected from any nuclear contamination until the source of the water that actually pumps to the geyser is contaminated. So a geyser is a very good storage of something that won't be contaminated typically. And you could use that. If you have a rainwater tank in the backyard, even if the lid isn't a completely tight seal, you can use that water and you can clean yourself off. And then you need to get away. If the wind is blowing in a different direction, you can stay where you are and just shelter in place. Typically, if there's still civil infrastructure, if there's still government infrastructure, they will typically tell people where to move to. But you need to know, where are you going to go? Where are you going to house yourself? You won't be able to go to a shop with a tactical nuke to just go and buy stuff. They are going to shut those places down, and looting and pillaging will start instantly. It's not going to be like with a power shutdown where within 2 days there's chaos. It's instant chaos. So the people that know that they've survived the initial explosion, they maybe haven't received that exposure because they were sheltered, and they understand that the plume is moving away from them, they can start looting and pillaging any which way they want, because civil society would have broken down completely. I don't know how the police force or the military or anyone reinforces anything under those circumstances. So, yeah, you go into a plan C situation. For those of you that have been on this channel for a long time will understand plan A, B, and C. You will be in a Mad Max situation, every man for himself, at that time until people can regroup, and then you can revert to a plan B situation, and then later build back to a plan A, and that is very important. Okay. Any other questions? Best is just get your relationship in order with God through Jesus Christ. All this fear mongering. This is not about fear mongering at all. Okay. This is about reality. And we have been told, if you're a Christian, you will believe that you need to prepare for any eventuality, because that's what, if you believe in the Savior, taught. I'm a Christian, and I believe that we need to prepare for things. We were warned of times that would come, and Christians, Muslims, Jewish people all believe this. People from all faiths believe that there will be trouble in what is called the end times or the end days. And I believe that that end time or end day is a period of time. It's not tomorrow and it's the end of things. I'm talking here about a tactical nuke that can explode somewhere. And I'm telling you, it's not a big deal. Okay, it's not a big deal. The world will try and turn it into something horrific. For the people at ground zero, it is a big deal. But for the world, it is not. And they will try and use it to scare people into relinquishing their freedoms. And anyone that is a Christian or a Muslim or a Jewish person should believe in freedom of association, freedom of religion, and believe that you should be able to make choices and according to your dictates. And the moment that is removed from you, you won't be allowed to practice your religion anymore. And this is something that people should fear more than a nuclear weapon, is your freedom being taken away. And a tactical nuke being used to create a worldwide state of emergency, well, like I said yesterday, will make COVID-19 look like a Sunday school picnic. So I really want to thank you for joining me. I hope I have been able to give you some practical information for anyone around the world. if you look at some of the states in the US that very recently handed out free 72-hour kits that ran nuclear exercises, you will understand that it's important that these people are telling you that times are uncertain. You will always be warned beforehand. When the media tells you left, right, and center that something is going to happen, just like the build up to COVID, the COVID 2019, you're going to get the same with a tactical nuke. It's everywhere right now being spoken of. They might not even have to use one to get people to bow down to the threat at the end of the day. And only time will tell. Thank you to the 400 people that are watching now. Please like and share this video so that more people can watch it. This video was live stream was made under request from people that wanted certain things explained to them. Just one last thing, we've reached our time limit. Potassium iodide tablets can be used to saturate the thyroid so that it doesn't get saturated with iodine 131, which is a radioactive remnant of a nuclear explosion. And when you saturate it with a potassium iodide, you won't have that iodine 131 sitting so close to your brain, irradiating you all the time. It cannot stop you from other sources of radiation. Understand this. So don't think that taking those tablets is going to stop you from being irradiated from the outside. It cannot do that. Time, distance, and shielding. How much time you are exposed, how far you are from the source of the radiation, and what shielding do you have. If you see a nuclear fireball, get behind something fast. Don't try and look at the fireball again. And then shelter in place. Look at the direction of the plume. Go inside first. Make sure that you can see the direction that the plume is going into. Wherever that plume is going, you need to stay away from there. If it's coming towards you, you need to move fast, whether by foot, whether on a bicycle, whether in a car. In most instances, a car will not work. The roads will be clogged. Those people will not make it. You need to be able to be mobile. In most cases, a mountain bike, a bicycle, a motorbike on foot will be your best option. If the plume hasn't reached you yet, you will be fine. Wear a mask that can remove particulates and you should be okay. And get yourself as far away as possible. After 3 days, a lot of the fallout will be gone and you will be able to see whether you can safely return. How did the people respond in the area where the explosion took place? If it was typically in a metro, it could be an absolute chaos zone, depending on the country that you are living in. In South Africa, where we live, I don't expect it to be anything but chaos. So thank you very much for watching and joining me. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below this video, and I can address anything more if there's anything more specific that you want to ask. Quintus is asking, given your professional and hands-on experience at Coburg, should something happen accidentally, for instance, sabotage, how far could Ground Zero stretch in terms of the Western Cape Peninsula? It would have to be a massive explosion to affect the entire peninsula. I can tell you why a nuclear power station can be a huge problem is if you have a radiation leak, there is so much fissile material in the core. There's tons of it in there. With a nuclear weapon, that's not the case. You get an instant explosion and it's over, okay? Then you just have the fallout depending on the size of the core. Now, I can tell you, if you have a core this size, in the Coburg reactor, the core is much bigger than that in pins, but it's not highly enriched, okay? So that's awesome. With a nuclear weapon, you have a highly enriched core, more than 80% enriched, and the effects are far-reaching. So I would leave the metro. If an explosion should happen in the metro, I would leave the metro as an example. Initially, that's what I would do, and then I will see what the circumstances are before I decide to come back. I will take my family and leave instantly. That's what I would do. Okay. Thanks for joining me. I really need to go now. I have members live at 8 o'clock. We're going to be discussing Rob Hershoff and his plans for the new South Africa. We're going to look at that in detail. We're going to break it down from his own website and discuss what it means. So those of you that are going to be there with me, I look forward to that. So see you all later. Thank you for joining. Please like and share so more people can watch this content. Thank you very much. Till next time.